Asil, I think you can start. Start.
Should we start now, ma'am?
Start.
Okay.
Yeah, it's already. Asik, we are not able to hear you.
I think.
Are you having some network issue?
Is there now, ma'am?
Yeah, I mean there is a lag.
I think there is some network issue.
Maybe what you can do is switch off your video and try speaking. See if it works. Just wait for a minute, I suppose.
Now, am I audible right now, ma'am?
Yeah, you are audible.
So we can start now. Our topic for today is sleep psychiatry interface. Dr. Jyoti, the chairperson, I ask you, ma'am, to introduce our speakers. And okay, ma'am, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Asif, for starting. Okay. So, good evening, all of you, and welcome to this fourth session today on sleep and psychiatry phase. I'm Dr. Jyoti Maheshwari. I'm an EC member of Bombay Psychiatric Society, and it's my great privilege to chair today's session. And now is the most honorable job what I have to do to introduce two stalwarts here who are going to be giving us a lot of knowledge from their knowledge bank. We have today Dr. TSS Rao and Dr. Amrit Joshi. Both of them don't need much of an introduction, but yeah. Dr. Rao is currently professor in Department of Psychiatry, JSS Medical College and JSS Aher, Mysore. He was a general secretary of IPS last year, and he was also a former president of Indian Association of Geriatric Mental Health. And Sir has a great editorial skills, which we can see from his profile. He has been editor of Journal of Psychosexual Health. He was formerly editor of Indian Journal of Psychiatry, not only once, but 3 years, 2004, 7, and 18. And currently he is editor of Chairman Publication SSM. He is also co-chair in Psychiatry and Human Sexuality section. And Sir has 325 research and review papers on his name, and also 26 books and chapters are on his name. He has got many awards, including Marfatia and DLN Murthy Rao Oration Award. So, and yeah, he is currently president of Karnataka Sexual Science Academy. So no one else can be a real apt person today to talk about sleep and sexuality. Our second speaker for today is Dr. Amrit Joshi, who is professor at High Tech Medical College, Bhubaneswar. He is a direct council member of IPS and EC in charge of National Suicide Prevention Helpline and LGBT Task Force. He is also secretary of IPS East Zone and president-elect for IPS Odisha State Branch. So we are going to have a lot of knowledge. Now, just quickly, I'll just give few, instructions. We are going to have 20-25 minutes for each speaker. And whatever questions you have, you can put it on the chat box. We will take it at the end of each one's speech is done with that, right? So over to you, Dr. Rao, now to take it forward.
Good evening. I'll start sharing first my slides. Are you able to see?
No, sir.
No, okay.
Asik, have you given him this? Yeah, I think share screen is there with him given.
This thing has been given, no?
Yeah. That icon is showing green, no, sir? On your, yeah, so you can share.
Click to add notes. I brought a new this thing, so this is slightly. Show.
Have you opened your PPT?
Yes, I have opened.
Then just minimize and click on share screen.
Are you able to see?
Not yet, not yet.
You are sharing it?
Have you sent it to Asif?
I have sent it to
Avinash. He is not here.
1 minute.
You can mail it to me right now if you want.
Okay.
Put your email ID into chat, no, Asif? So you can mail it to him. We'll share it. Asik, maybe you can pause the recording and you can restart later. You pause. Yeah. Over to you, Dr. Amrit. For current situation.
No issues. Everybody, all the esteemed members of the Bombay Psychiatric Society and all the members who have joined in. It's a little difficult topic because it's not something we present day to day, or it's not something which we present, but it's the need of the hour. We have to understand, because we see a lot of patients who come to our clinics nowadays asking us, sir, I'm using this app. Is it good? What app should I use? And sleep is one of the commonest things which people, issues with sleep are one of the commonest things which we face in everyday clinical practice. So as we all know, sleep is a very crucial biological process, and it has been accepted as and recognized as an essential determinant of human health and performance. Sleep known to retrieve energy, promote healing, play with the immune system. So, during the COVID time, people talk about using zolpidem or melatonin, to improve the immune system. So sleep is a very, very vital element in improving our immune system. So ultimately, it leads to a better brain function, better behavior in terms of how we act, how we think. It also has a effect on our moods also. So There are more than 1 lakh health apps. If you really look at health apps, there are more than 1 lakh health apps. And smartphones have been widely adopted by the general public and have become an integral part of today. And if you look at medical field, medicine also has started accepting smartphones as an integral part of monitoring your health, looking after your health, and maybe taking better care of ourselves. There's a caveat to it. A lot of issues are now being blamed on the smartphone usage. So, but then either way you look at it, you use it for good, you use it for bad. The controls are in our hands. But when they lose the control, they come to us. So forget that part, that phones are not good for sleep, apps are not good for sleep. We'll be discussing about the better things. So basically, I'll be dealing with this topic as a mental health professional, not as a sleep specialist. So my take on this will be a little different from somebody who is a sleep health specialist who will be only talking about sleep. So my take will be different. I'll be taking the devil's view of the whole sleep apps that we see about. So basically, I wanted to share this picture. This is a person who had a psychotic illness and he committed suicide. He ended his life, he took his life. So he basically drew this figure 6 to 7 days before his death. So basically, he left a digital imprint. He drew it on Facebook, actually. He drew it in Facebook. So somewhere there was a cry for help. I would always think, 3 days back or 4 days back, one of my colleagues, we were talking about, what are the red flag signals for suicide in a teenager. So we were discussing that anybody who really thinks that life is hopeless or there is no alternative to what the ordeal somebody is facing, he tries to reach out. So when we discussed, then we found out that guy, before he ended his life, tried to reach out to 3 of his friends and told that this is my last day. So somewhere there is a digital, people tend to live something on the, online. And that is where maybe the apps, maybe the social media, I track a lot of people based on their social media, if they're known to me, in terms of if they're medicos, if they're known people and they're under treatment, based on their Insta post, based on their Facebook post, based on their stories they share, I can understand what is happening. I'm not telling that it is foolproof, but then it gives us an indication of where things are actually going on. And in subsequent presentations, I'll be discussing a lot of things about that. So coming to, if you look at WHO mental health gap action program, there was a systematic review of evidence from low and middle income countries. So if you look at India as a country, there's a treatment gap of around 7 to 86% in India. And if you look at the COVID scenario, that gap has actually increased significantly. So that is where we as mental health professionals will come out. If you look at SAMHSA, this is a Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. This is a research in US. So they talked about 4 million trained professionals is the requirement in US only. Look at India now. What would be the requirement now? So that there's a huge gap between the people who need us and the number of people who are there to help the needy in terms of mental health. Lookout. So if you look at global health trends, we actually have to take hold of technology in terms of reaching out. Or people reaching out to us. It's a bilateral process. It is not just that people are reaching out to us. We also have to reach out to people. That is where psychiatry is taking a turn now. So I think the whole digital health technologies would help us in bridging the gap, in making things easier for the clients, for us, in terms of real-time monitoring, in terms of patients reaching to us immediately. And that is where the technology will be helping. So this is actually the, post-COVID, we had all the telepsychiatry guidelines, and we as the Indian Psychiatric Society have been in the forefront, be it taking care of mental needs of people in terms of telephone, be it in terms of taking care of the psychological health by volunteering our professionals, as well as making a national suicide helpline. We have been in the forefront, and we were lucky that the national, the finance minister talked about telemedicine in terms of opening 23 centers with NIMHANS as one of the forefront in terms of giving telemedicine. So the whole thing is developing, but there's still a digital divide. There are 2 sets of people. One, are we trying to get in with the development that is occurring now? This one generation is still to accept the whole thing. that now psychiatry, there has to be a balance. It just cannot be that the patient is sitting with us and we are looking at the patient. It might be the patient is somewhere else. It might be that the patient is not visible to us. It might be that the patient is using a mobile phone and we or somebody within us is tracking the whole individual in terms of whether the patient is having a relapse, the patient is going into depression, the patient is having a psychotic breakdown. So the whole, so the whole digital divide is gradually, getting lower. If you look at the number of smartphone users, it's more than 100,000 million people are using smartphones. And if we, and if we don't be with the population, the changes the population is going through, the things that they are thinking, the apps they are using, the way they are expressing themselves, then we will be just catching on all the old CTPs and OTPs and thinking that we know the whole of psychiatry. So psychiatry has evolved, people have evolved, and we as a population need to evolve based on these things. So, and this is my favorite. This is in 1950s. This is a computer storage. It used to store data. So a huge room equivalent to Dr. TSSR's house was just used to store data. And now if you look at this smartphone carries more data than the whole room that was used to carry data maybe 30, 40 years back. So that is how technology has developed. That is how learning has developed. That is how everything is developing. So there are different types of data, and if you look at data in terms of active data, there is passive data, there is artificial intelligence, there is machine learning, there is big data. A lot of terms have come into the picture. So I'll be just taking you through some of the things. So what is actually active data? Active data typically refers to smartphone-based surveys, which we generally do. It's basically new means to characterize the patient's clinical. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? Are you happy? Are you sad? How are you sleeping? Do you ever feel that you should end your life? Questions based on yes, no. So this is basically you're taking active data. We ask questions to somebody based on the smartphone surveys, and the patient will be answering us. So this is one app. I was just discussing an app. This is the e-mood app. So it's the easiest way to track your moods online or offline. So a typical question comes like this: today's most extreme depressed mood, mild, moderate, severe. Today's most extreme elevated mood. Today's most extreme irritability, most extreme anxiety, psychotic symptoms, talk therapy today. A lot of things have been given. And then it gives a graph in terms of a month, for a month. Like what is the number of sleep hours you have slept? What are the times you have remained depressed, elevated, irritable, anxious? You had psychotic symptoms, you had talked to somebody, what is your weight in terms of if somebody is having a depressive episode, he's having weight loss. So, and it gives you a graph actually. So this is a graph I wanted to, the yellow is, so these are the number of days somebody is in an elevated state. These are the number of days somebody is in a depressed state. And these are the number of days somebody is in a mixed state. Yellow and blue actually talks about a mixed state. So in the morning, somebody is has an elevated mood, and in the evening, somebody has a very depressed mood. So that it talks about a mixed state. So it's just so if you look at active data, there is a strong correlation between traditional in-clinic metrics. Like somebody comes and sits with us. What do you ask? How do you feel? How is your sleep? How is your appetite? How have you been throughout the day? How have you been through last month? What are your predominant thoughts? A lot of questions. Have you felt anxious? What are the situations which creates such type of symptoms in you? How do you pacify yourself? Are you able to control things? What is the intensity of the thoughts? What is the intensity of the mood? What is the quality of the mood? That's how, and I think active data is, there is a good face validity of active data, smartphone based active data which we take. So there is a validity in terms of active data. Now coming to passive data. Passive data is a little different thing in terms of, suppose you have a smartphone. How do you gather passive data? So phone has sensors. So it can know your activity. What are you doing? As people tell that everybody is looking at what you are doing. Your location, we are always with our GPS on, and sociality. Are we talking to anybody? Are we not talking to anybody? Are we using WhatsApp? Are we using Facebook? Are we using Insta? So it talks about our sociability. Now, keyboard interaction. What is the reaction time? Are we clicking the phones fast? Are we getting a message, reading it, and slowly typing it? Are there gaps between the words when we are typing it. So what is our attention? What is our memory based on our, keyboard interactions? Voice and speech analysis is also done. The prosody. Many times we want to talk to a patient, we talk about the quality, the reaction time, the volume, the prosody, what is the mood, is it coherent, is it relevant? We give a stimulus and whether the patient is talking relevantly, whether the patient is talking coherently. So that actually gives us the idea about what is happening with the patient. So that gives a digital phenotype. Talks about behavior, cognition, mood. So we get a sample of the patient's cognition, behavior, mood, and then it is a measurement-based patient care. We talk about we diagnose the patient, we monitor for remission and relapse. That's a very, very important thing, and we can predict the risk if somebody is suicidal, somebody is not suicidal, somebody is having a switch, somebody is getting into depression, somebody is having a psychotic breakdown, depending on what he's talking, what he's typing, how he's typing. A lot of things. So that predicts the risk in an individual. So next is, if you look at psychopathology, I belong to the old school of psychopathology, where form is much more important than content. So we get digital phenotypes. I was talking about digital phenotypes. So how you type is much more important than what you type, because form is permanent, content is temporary. So I just give you an example of how you type. Time between scroll, you scroll something and you are typing. So how you type is much more important than not what you type. So you get a digital phenotype. So I'm just talking about a PHQ-9 versus a passive data collection. So in PHQ-9, you talk about a patient comes to a clinic, he walks into a clinic, and you give him this PHQ-9, and you ask him questions. Have you any interest in pleasure? You're feeling down, you're feeling bad about yourself, you're not able to focus, you're not able to concentrate, you're moving or speaking so slowly, thought that would better, you think that you're better off dead. And here you have a mobile which gives you data, step counts, text analytics from social media, metadata from electronic medical records, green space exposure from geolocation. So you get a lot of things, a lot of data. So when you're sitting in front of the clinic, in front of a patient, the patient talks about in PHQ that he's fine, there's no depressed mood. But when you get data from his mobile, everything is fine. So now there are two caveats to it. One is many people fake that they are feeling good. Many people, and in many cases, we have retrospective falsifications. So suppose somebody is stable in a treatment for the last 6 months, and he or she has left medication for the last 4 or 5 days, and he has a relapse. He or she feels anxious. And when you tell them to fill up this PHQ-9, they will talk that they're anxious, they're not feeling good. So somewhere you start feeling that, is your treatment wrong? Is your diagnosis wrong? So the whole, this app-based technology to take care of mental health, to talk about diagnosis, to talk about prognosis, to talk about compliance, to talk about relapse, is a very, very welcome addition, as long as things go the way they measure the things which we want to. So this is basically big data. It collects data. So, and then it is put into machine learning. There is data mining, classification, big data is taken in. There is, a lot of things which is beyond the scope of this presentation. So what are the utilities actually? It finds patterns applicable to the clinic. So if there is excessive text messages, patient is switching to mania. It predicts treatment response, predicts suicide, and it does phenomapping. We also have personalized medicine. So the next thing that we get into is a personalized medicine. Whatever data we collect, it is just to help an individual, not as a group, as an individual, so that we can actually intervene in time, which is also known as just-in-time adaptive interventions. So active plus passive data is collected. There is a personalized digital health interventions, but it is still in infancy stage, and many people are working on it. And maybe in the next couple of years, we're going to see a digital revolution in mental health care. So that is very, very important. Now, coming to the main topic of our presentation, that is sleep apps. So between 10 to 30% of adults struggle with chronic insomnia, and women more than men. 30 to 48% of older adults suffer from insomnia. That's a huge percentage. I see it with my father also. So if you look at people who don't sleep properly, they have 7 times more chances of having work-related accidents, and that's a huge number. 15 to 30% of males and 10 to 30% of females meet a broad definition of obstructive sleep apnea. We see a lot of our siblings, parents, we ourselves snoring a lot, and many of us are not diagnosed as obstructive sleep apnea because we never think that we might be having such issues. But I think that is very, very important. And if you look at restless leg syndrome affects between 5 to 10% of adults and 2 to 4% of children. Sleep paralysis in around 8%. It might not be that high, but maybe 5% of people are suffering from a sleep paralysis. So if you don't sleep, you have so many issues in terms of short-term and long-term issues, from chronic issues, diabetes, blood pressure issues, you have chronic pain syndromes, and many times if you are not sleeping well for years together, you might have premature death. I don't want to speak about such sinister things, but then that occurs. Now, sleep deprivation leads to mental health issues, lead sleep deprivation. So it's a very, very intertwined thing, and that's why sleep is such an important aspect when it comes to mental health professionals. So if you look at measuring sleep, the gold standard is the polysomnography, and it's a very, very tough. I had a thesis on polysomnography. 2 years of my life I have spent in the sleep lab, with no respite from day duty. So every night you go to the lab, every patient you measure, you have first a 0 night, the patient gets acclimatized, then after 2 days of acclimatization, you measure the sleep. And that's a very tough, it takes 45 minutes to 1 hour to put all the leads. And then after 2 hours, the patient tells, I need to go to the washroom. So you have to take out everything. Patient goes to the washroom, comes back, you put in. That disrupts the whole sleep cycle. So otherwise, what you do, you would give a, you give a bucket and sit down with the bucket with the patient. So it's very, very tough putting out. It's very expensive. You need costly machines, you need people. So polysomnography paired with clinical evaluation has been the gold standard and de facto technique to study sleep. So we also have sleep monitoring outside the laboratory. We can do it. So what are the various things which we can measure sleep? Number one is actigraphy. Number two is these are bed sensors. These are put under the bed. Your movements, the way light sleep, deep sleep, everything can be monitored. Then we have this, ambulatory head EEGs. So this is just put on the head. They're not very specific. Then we have this, Wi-Fi systems. So if there is a machine through Wi-Fi, it takes care of your the sounds you make, the movements you make, a lot of things it measures via Wi-Fi. Very expensive, and the clinical utility, we are not very, very sure about it. Then we have ultrasound guided things, and then we have smartwatches. So these are the things which are used for sleep monitoring outside the lab. So we have a lot of sleep related applications in terms of awoken lucid dreaming to sleep cycle, sleep tracker, sleep monitors, sleep recorder and sleep cycle tracker, alarm clock for heavy sleepers, better sleep. We have sleep tracker, pills, sleep, nap, focus, white noise light. So a lot of things. There are some of these sleep apps for iPhones and MacBook users. There are some of these sleep apps for Android users. So there are not a lot of studies based on mobile phone apps for sleep tracking, but in one study we found that about 30% of the sample use mobile phones. This is a US based track, and mostly these sleep apps have been used by smokers. That's one important caveat. Who are smoking, who are not taking care of their health, are very, very worried about what is happening to their sleep. So that's a very, very interesting thing. So if you look at smartphone apps, what do they actually use? So they use the gyroscopes. Gyroscopes basically measure the sound. Gyroscopes actually measure the angular velocity, how the smartphone is being used, how the patient is going. So based on the angular velocity, it measures it. Then we have microphones which measure sounds, and we have accelerometers which actually determines the speed with which you are going. So the movement based on the speed, movement based on the angular velocity, and microphones measure the sounds. So this is one app which is one of the, it's a very, very good app. It is Anxiety and Depression Association of America had reviewed this, and this is basically a iSleep Easy app. So there's a built-in microphone to detect events that happen during sleep, such as body movement, cough, and snoring by processing the acoustic signals that come out. This software achieves an accuracy of over 90% for event classification, like snoring, like cough, like sleep under different environmental conditions. So that's a pretty decent level of accuracy. An important limitation of the system is that the high rate microphone sampling represents a significant source of energy. So what you have to do is you have always to put it on charge when you are using it. So this app contains guided meditations to help users fall asleep and sleep better. This app also provides tips on how to improve one's sleeping environment. Users can also create or choose from playlists containing relaxing audio tracks to fall asleep to. So many people use a lot of standard music, a lot of things to fall asleep. So this app actually monitors you, guides you, helps you, advises you. So this is one of the better apps that is very, very frequently used. So another is the popular sleep cycle. This is another app. I'm just discussing few apps. So it uses both accelerometry and the built-in microphone, based on the key principle being that more activity indicates lighter sleep while stillness indicates deeper sleep. This is a very, very simple formula which people use, that if you move more, you are more in the NREM sleep or in the lighter sleep, and if you make more movements, you are in the deeper sleep. The most important thing is it cannot give whether the patient is on NREM 1, NREM 2 or REM sleep. That's the major drawback. It only gives you a sleep graph. This is how we basically use. So we place the phone as pictured and keep the charger connected. So once we try to want to sleep, we just tap twice or pick the device up and keep it. So, and then finally at the end of the day, it gives you a, so this is basically what all it detects. It has a smart alarm. I'll be talking about the smart alarm feature. It helps you sleep by giving you sounds, soothing sounds. It detects whether you are snoring or not snoring. So it tracks and listens to your snoring, and it gives you statistics. It identifies the changes and progress over time. So it gives you basically a sleep graph. So how long you have been awake, how long you have been sleeping, and how long have you been in deep sleep. So at what, based on the time, and a lot of smart watches also give these statistics. I see a lot of people, friends, medicos who come to me that I'm sleeping only 5 hours. My sleep app told I'm doing this, and my sleep app told me that I'm sleeping only this. So a lot of the whole validity of the whole what they are seeing is questionable, because as long as we don't compare them with the polysomnographic findings. So another thing that sleep, one is a sleep quality. So here it is assessed on the basis of up to 100. It talks about amount of time spent in bed, amount of time spent in deep sleep, consistency of the sleep, and number of times that the app registered you as fully awake. Now sleep quality based on four things. Who decides that this is the sleep quality? Again, that whole thing is questionable. So this leads to a lot of anxiety issues in people who think that the sleep quality score is less, because I was talking about these things. People who are technologically advanced, many people who are anxious take hold of technology, and because of the technology, many people become anxious. So it's again, you get into a negative cycle. So you have to decide whether you need to put these apps, whether you need to use these apps, how good are these apps. Are these apps measuring what they are telling they are measuring, and what they are measuring or what they are claiming, is it important? So those things, question marks remain. And the precision of the whole measurement again is questionable. So again, there is a sleep data synchronization. This is a very, very interesting thing, because everybody talks about exercise and sleep. So this app actually talks about your exercise, how many steps you took, and what is the sleep quality. Suppose you took more steps today, you took 3,000 steps. Is your sleep quality better or your sleep quality worse? So this is another new thing. There's a smart alarm. What happens is, many times we all face this issue. We have to get up at 7:30. So we put the alarm at 7:15, knowing that we might need to sleep another 15 minutes, because we can't just get up once the alarm clock rings. We have to switch it off and get up. No, we switch it off. We sleep for 10-15 minutes more and then get up. What actually this app identifies is, it tries to suppose you want to get up between 7 to 7:30. So we put the alarm at between 7 and 7:30. So what this app actually does is, it senses when you are sleeping, when you are in a light sleep, when your movements are little more, then the alarm rings. So what happens? It is easier for you to get up when you are in a light sleep than when you are in a deep sleep. You don't get irritated. Your day doesn't start with, negativism. I was sleeping so well. Why did the alarm clock? I had to go at 7:30. The alarm. Why did I put the alarm at 7 o'clock? So this is a smart alarm. This is again another thing that is used by a lot of apps. So now sonics for sleep. There are a lot of it gives different sounds to relax you. Sound of river. Many people want to relax. They go to mountains. They go to river valleys. They take rooms where there is where they can see the water bodies. So here there are different sounds in terms of wind, river, flute, rain. Whatever suits you, whatever makes you feel relaxed, whatever can induce sleep. Because one of the important aspects of insomnia is the cognitive. The whole cognitive awakening. You are always worried that whether I can sleep. The whole brain is jammed. It's 9 o'clock tonight. Also, I can't sleep. Everybody is sleeping. Why I'm not able to sleep? The whole thing, it relaxes you. It makes you go into a little lighter vein of mood. Your anxiety reduces. So this is how apps use sonics for sleep. Then we have these binaural beats. Binaural beats are actually what happens is when two frequencies are given to different ears. The brain tells to minus one frequency and use one frequency. Suppose in one year we give 10 hertz frequency, in another year we put 7 hertz frequency. The brain will think that it's a 3 hertz frequency. So based on what we need, we can give them the frequency. Suppose we need to relax, we give 10 hertz frequency. For deep meditation, we give 5 hertz frequency. For dreamless sleep, 25 hertz. For concentration, 20 hertz. For dreams, we have 4 hertz. So if we need to induce somebody to sleep, we can give 8 hertz. So different frequencies in 2 different ears. Sum total, the minus has to come to 4 hertz or 8 hertz or 5 hertz, depending on the frequency we want them to. So we can give, this is the brainwave. Then accuracy problems. So these are basically 2 studies, Bhatt et al. In 2015 and Toon et al. So they found one talked about sleep time, one talked about, so there was accuracy problems in both. So Bhatt et al. Found that absolute parameters and sleep staging correlate poorly with the polysomnography. So they did studies with polysomnography. So sleep staging and all were absolutely not in sync. And this they did on motion into 24/7. It did not accurately reflect sleep or wake and should be used with caution. So 2 studies that were done, and they both found that there was poor correlation with the actual. So algorithms can be used to determine sleep structure. That is what is the need in the future. So this is just a comparison of the different sensory modes for sleep and the user burden. If you look at bed sensors, they're the most accurate with the least user burden. If you look at mobile health apps, accuracy is in the middle and user burden is also in the middle. So if you look at mobile health apps currently, the accuracy is still yet to reach the optimal level, and the user burden is also a little high. So that on both the fronts, it needs to be worked out. So this is basically I've talked about the different performance matrices and the comparisons. So if you look at mobile health, only scalability and usability, it is little strong. So you can scale it a little better and the usability is little more. Otherwise, if you look at sleep time determination, sleep quality determination, sleep staging determination, sleep disorder determination, they don't reach even 20 to 25%. So sleep is the best meditation. Go to bed, switch off the lights, get out of your tension. So let your dream come true. Your future depends on your dreams. So go to sleep. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Amrit. That was really very informative and enriching presentation. Yeah, not only psychiatry point of view, but also the technology point of view. So thank you very much. For the short of time, I think we'll straight away first listen to Dr. Rao and then we'll take the question answer. So all your questions, please put it into the chat and we'll be taking it at the end. Yeah. Over to you, Dr. Rao. Dr. Astik, you will be sharing now, right?
I'm waiting for sir to say okay.
Sir, you are on mute. You'll have to unmute it.
I tried, there is some difficulty. Let him share.
Yeah. So, Asik, you share.
Okay. Can you hear this sound?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Once this sound comes, you move the slide rather than me telling move the slide and all of that.
Sorry, sir.
Can you hear this sound?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Once this sound comes, you keep moving the slides.
Okay.
Okay. At the outset, I'm really happy that I have been invited and be part of this particular program. We are all well aware of great work this Bombay Psychiatric Society is doing, and I thank the chairman, Avinash, and all the other people involved in inviting me to this particular activity. Coming to sleep and sexuality, these are the two of the very important areas somehow neglected for a long time. And certain issues, what we would definitely need to look into is actually how, in fact, when somebody is sleeping, sex doesn't happen. When somebody is doing sex, sleep doesn't happen. If you try to look into the details, each one is a mystery. Though these are extremely common in our understanding and part of life, but all said and done, what work actually has happened in this area is actually something minimal. Next. So there is a lot of literature in the public domain too, that what need to be done. And we are all well aware why it is extremely important is February 12th is our Sexual and Reproductive Health Awareness Day. So it is very apt that this particular time, this activity actually has been maintained. Keep moving. In fact, there are a lot of slides are there. You just keep moving it. So when we try to look at sleep and sex, there are few things which are extremely common. Both are episodic, both are promptly reversible. Reduced awareness. We are all well aware that a lot of things happen in this particular world, because when we are thinking about sex, we really don't try to do or understand a lot of cognitive issues involved. And that is one of the reasons why so many mistakes do happen. Reduced responsiveness for all other stimuli and motor inhibition, what we talk about. That means these two actually carry a lot of similarities. I'm not going to go into the elaborate description of stages of sleep and all, but why I just focus this particular slide is there is a whole range of newer classifications that have come, N1, N2, N3 and all of that, which have compressed the non-REM sleep to and another REM sleep. All the dysomnias and parasomnias, what we talk about, majority of them are part of REM sleep. When you are NREM sleep. When you are talking about REM sleep, when you are talking about dreams and other related things, and what precisely happens to your body, there is a total loss of muscle tone. There are only few particular parts which are sustaining the vital activity. So there is a wide difference between type of problems what we encounter and keeping a good understanding of what we are actually trying to look at, what stage, what problem can happen is something extremely important. So disease exists. If it is more or less, both could be problematic is actually what Hippocrates had mentioned. We are all well aware. I'm not going to elaborate much on the excessive sleep. We are all well aware, even personality-wise, that those people who are a little lazy, in fact, sexually speaking, there are quite a bit of problems among these individuals. And when we are trying to look at certain jokes, like the extreme form of laziness is actually marrying a pregnant lady. That means somehow this particular person doesn't show any interest in any of the activities. This is one of the very common related meaning many of the statements actually people carry. We are all well aware there are a whole lot of things are there. The falling asleep, maintaining, and actually how somebody wakes up. Why I'm telling, and we are trying to look at the depression, early morning awakening, if that is one variable, if it is actually documented, this is one of the key indicator that there is actually the depression related things. Whether a refreshing sleep somebody had or not, actually going to make much of difference between whether somebody is presenting with multiple problems or there is no such problem. We are going to again elaborate some of these type of points as we proceed. People believe that during sleep, our brain is also sleeping. It is a very passive project. In fact, in the sense that you put the switch off, the things are. But now we are all well aware, there are a lot of things actually happen. In fact, the very well documented, very early phase of sleep research is that in a night's sleep, anywhere between 100 to 200 plus body movements actually documented. What it means is we go through multiple phases, a lot of activities does happen, and some of these type of activities may have a relationship related to what we basically call sexuality functioning too. Next. When we are trying to look at sleep and sex, few points we have already mentioned. Both are normal processes, natural and vital, as much as eating and breathing. Disruptions affects quality of life. Both are extremely important components. We are all well aware in psychiatric history taking, we almost either positively we inquire about sleep, not because of anything, but because the quality of life is going to be determined by these things. Next. And when we are trying to look at many of the aspects related to sleep, there is nothing like anybody would like to forego sleep. One can do it for a certain length of time, and this actually lasts only for maybe 48 hours, 72 hours, and beyond that, whole lot of things actually start happening. And this is sleep is one of the most looked up forward to, in fact, a type of activity for any individual. In the same fashion, when we are trying to talk about sleep, one aspect of it, the sex. We are sleeping with a partner, and one of the important thing is actually, in fact, it is hanky-dory and everything is fine. It won't happen that particular way. We almost always talk about people who are married because she is somewhere and I am somewhere, so there are no problems. Many of the times, individually sleeping with the enemy, lot of problems which are outside are brought into the bedroom, and that is one of the things actually which creates quite a bit of difficulty. And when we are trying to talking about sexual issues, what Woody Allen mentioned that for all our problems, love is the answer, but while we are waiting for the answer, sex raises some pretty good questions, and any problems either in the sleep or in the sex could be one of the major common problem for range of difficulty actually the individuals go through. And coming to, there are a lot of websites available which actually talk about a whole range of issues related to, but there is a significant relationship. What if we can try to go into a little more into the detail? Sleep, sex, and sexuality are important components of health in adults. Sexual health is not only physical, and it involves emotions and broader quality of life. Similarly, sleep has far-reaching effects on our well-being, critical to nearly every process and system of the body. Once somebody has not having proper sleep or in fact issues related to the sex, then only we realize a whole lot of relationship issues that crop up. And somehow in the individual's life, these two things are often overlooked. It is a bi-directional link between sex and sleep. Good sleep, good sex. Good sex and good sleep. In fact, we are going to look into what are the issues related to this as we proceed further. Evidence demonstrates that quality of sleep promotes better sex. Similarly, healthy sex life can facilitate improved sleep. Recognizing connection between sleep and sex enhances our wellness in general. So there is a strong relationship between these two aspects which actually have been documented. When we are trying to talk about problems in the bedroom, many of the times it may be the relationship related issue, and sex more or less both can create quite a bit of difficulties which we are going to look into. There are plenty of websites are available. Sleep wake is a homeostatic process. And what actually one has documented from the clinical point of view, very important is actually as somebody stays awake for a longer time, sleep pressure builds up, and what we basically call sex debt in the earlier terminologies, what it means is we keep accumulating this particular thing. After a particular point, it's almost impossible to maintain this particular pressure. To dissipate, somebody has to sleep. The strongest drive for wake occurs by late evening. Strongest drive for sleep occurs early morning. And these are the two important things. Apart from this, there are a few people who are early sleepers and those who are late, who get up, or to somebody who sleeps very late and gets up early. Whole lot of things can create quite a bit of difficulty. And when we are trying to talk about young individuals, this could be one of the extremely important issue, because whole lot of cognitive functionalities can be affected by this particular problem. Coming to sleep-related erections, as we proceed to understand what actually the sexual issues are, we are all going to look into one important point called as what we call nocturnal penile tumescence, which was the earlier terminology. And International Classification of Sleep Disorders now insists that it should be used SRE. What it means is sleep-related erections. The presence or absence of it, which can differentiate what we call psychological to, in fact, biological. In fact, people can tell who understand the issues too. In fact, it's a simple clinical test like stamp test and lot many other things what people have to. In fact, 3 different days readings in the night for 8 to 10 hours using rigid scan. This can give a very, very clear idea about what actually one is going through. There are people who believe this is one of the absolute necessary too. In fact, there are many people who believe this is not necessary. Clinically, one can handle, but that may be a different issue altogether. But all said and done, this is one of the very important aspects. There are a few specific conditions which actually people have documented. I'm not going to go elaboration into any one of these type of things, except that, see, we are all well aware obstructive sleep apnea. People have documented that, in fact, these people have a significant degree of sleep disturbance. And they also carry high incidence of ED, almost 47 to 80% of the individuals. Severity is positively correlated. Many explanations have been given because testosterone, for the proper release, it is in the pulsatile form. The proper adequate sleep is one of the important necessity. And with REM, this particular process starts. If it is disturbed by some reason, in fact, this is one of the extremely important common component. Peripheral neuropathy, and because of the hypoxemia, and when we are going to talk about restless leg syndromes, paroxysmal movement disorders in the night, these type of things are extremely important to understand because they have a very significant understanding to make actually that. Vascular endothelial dysfunction, and because of which the whole range of problems people can encounter. Sildenafil and PDFI inhibitors have been found adequately or quite useful among these individuals too. Next. Other problem what actually that can come up in obstructive sleep apnea is the relationship issues. The partner feeling absolutely terrible and the difficulty is actually one of the very, very important point. Insomnia is another second important point. Very often we almost go with an idea there is a difficulty in initiating sleep as insomnia indicator, but we believe that it is difficulty in maintaining sleep, waking up early, resistance to going to bed, difficulty in sleeping without parent or caregiver intervention, and many other such things also are part of what we basically call insomnia. Associated consequences we are well aware. Somebody is not sleeping means they can start from simple fatigue and malaise to, in fact, the whole range of disorders which have been well documented. How one should go about making a diagnosis, this is not the time for me to elaborate on those things, but insomnia has a very significant, what we basically call sexual component related to it. A lot of sexual problems have been documented among these individuals. So coming to insomnia and sex, it is an independent risk factor. Other factors like CVD, diabetes, depression, in fact, this is one of the other things. Decreased level of testosterone, actually very well documented. And the other particular evaluation that may be necessary sometimes is actually the level of SHBG when some of these type of metabolic and obesity, diabetes, depression we may be talking about. These people secrete much bigger amount of globulins which blocks testosterone, and because of which the whole range of erectile and other difficulties what actually these people can experience, can have complications for other health and quality of life, including sexual function. So insomnia is actually extremely important. We have other category of disorders related to what we call as circadian sleep disorders, where advanced phase to delayed phase. This has become one of the major common problem in this current terminology, mainly because, as Dr. Amrit was talking about, We are all have got addicted to laptops, TVs, and mobiles, and because of which there's a whole range of our sleeping pattern that has got affected. Inability to sleep at a desired time, mismatch between the clock hour and the biological time, often self-correcting and transient factors. In fact, these are all what we call as jet lag. Staying for work at night and sleep during day, shift work disorder, many other such things have been documented. Rotating schedule, in fact, frequently changing. One week, one particular schedule, the second week, another different schedule, and third week. In fact, this can have much more problematic impact on the individuals than actually anything else. And we are now talking about 24/7 culture. What time, who is sleeping? In fact, it's very difficult to make out at all like that. In fact, everybody is having mobile, and this has affected significantly, and the whole range of depression, MI, GI disturbances, and lot many other what we call metabolic syndromes related documented. Females, menstrual irregularities, miscarriages, infertility, sexual dysfunctions. That means both males and females have gone through this particular type of difficulty. And today's world is maybe related to this sleep-related problem. Restless leg syndrome, we are all well aware. Dysfunction in dopamine, iron deficiency, to lot many other deficiencies people have documented for this whole type of disorders. Frequency in anemia, pregnancy, iron deficiency, anemia, uremia, and more particularly this hemodialysis patients. In fact, very, very classically documented. ED is extremely common among these individuals. Use of pramipexole and droperidol has been very classically advised, and PDE5 inhibitors have been used among correcting some of this type of problems. Correcting other vitamin and other related deficiencies is also extremely important issue. Periodic limb movements during sleep is one of the very, very common problem. Use of anticonvulsants, GABA agonists, clonazepam has given beneficial effect for the range of sexual difficulties many of these people actually what they have developed. In the same line, we have a few more other disorders where excessive sleep and that what can produce difficulties. Sleep-related erections, almost 20% of the people have, and the shorter duration of the erections, these are all very well documented among narcolepsy individuals. Potency and libido issues have been very well documented. And these people can get into the sleep in whatever type of activity they may be doing, and sex may be one of the things. And when you are trying to talk about nocturia, Amrit mentioned about this particular aspect when he was talking about the most important problem is many of those who are diabetics, those who are having problems related to the prostate, diabetes insipidus, and other sleep disorders, getting up at night for passing urine is extremely common. And people do complain and tell us that they are not getting sleep. More particularly the elderly, their need for sleep itself may be less, and they might be sleeping during daytime. So all these aspects, one has to spend enough time in psychoeducating the individuals to see that, in fact, they understand what actually we are trying to convey the meaning to these people. Coming to a few more other type of problems, what actually one can correlate. Sleepwalking, sleep talking, we are all well aware of. Sexsomnia. In fact, many of the sexual activities can happen where actually the patient may be unaware of. And this can lead to the range of difficulty among partners and what actually has been described. More than anything else, when you are trying to talk about rape and few more other things among what we call as the friend or date rape and many of the things what we talk about, this may be one of the important component, and one should be well aware of what actually we are trying to deal with. Important point is here again, actually the management easy by regularity in the sleep and actually getting back to regular sleep pattern. Many of the times actually the sexomania can be handled very easily. People may be feeling restless and other things actually too. In fact, somebody feeling exhausted in next day morning. These are some of the type of symptomatology which has been actually described. Next. Coming to, there are a few more other extra relations between sex and sleep. Sleep is not just a timeout. That's what actually we mentioned a few minutes back. Coming to important aspect, the fantasy can be poetry of sex, actually what we are trying to talk about. We are all well aware there are a lot of things that happen as far as sexuality is concerned. It is the Freud who mentioned about dreams and other related things, which can have an implication related to what type of problems we are trying to deal with. Dreams are extremely important because the royal way to what we call unconscious. Next slide. What it means is many of the things actually we don't see, and they are all indicators of many things actually somebody is going through. This is what actually he mentioned about dream work. What we see in the manifest content is something totally different from what is actually the underlying psychopathology, what it is actually going through. And we are all well aware the sensory input, life situation, day residues actually form the latent content, which gets totally modified by our own, what we basically call as psychological aspects, the unconscious processes involved in this. Ultimately, we see something. In fact, much of the dreams, what we see are very innocuous and neutralized fashion of many of the sexual things actually the individual may be expressing actually about. One can go about and one can talk about how actually one can understand the individual's underlying psychopathology, and one can try to help the individual by various analytic and other related dynamic processes. People believe that sex is one of the sleep promoting behavior. And related to this, there are a whole lot of studies that came up, but one of the important study which carried out in great detail was by Brissett et al., wherein in fact they studied what happens, no masturbation involved, with the light reading in bed, only masturbation, masturbation without orgasm, masturbation with orgasm, and they tried to analyze what actually the things are happening. The sexual activities following orgasm have facilitatory effect on human sleep and thereby offer non-pharmacological alternative. Kinsey had reported long ago that it produces relaxation, sleepiness, and sleep onset as an after effect of orgasm. Hauptmann and Sherman had reported this particular facilitatory effect is in relation to what we call males. Coming to females, there is a whole lot of issues involved, and one should be almost always trying to look into what precisely happens. So there are very specifically the oxytocin, prolactin, and inhibition of corticosteroids. Corticosteroids I'm not going to elaborate because endogenous increased corticosteroid related this thing, depression and inhibition of many of the activities are now very well documented related to things. Oxytocin and prolactin, I'll just try to elaborate a little more for the simple reason that these actually carry very significant value for psychiatrists. Oxytocin elevated following sexual intercourse, associated with better sex, reduction in stress, and improved sleep quality in both males and females. Prolactin is associated with both quality of orgasm and sexual satisfaction following orgasm, particularly when orgasm occurs during sleep interval. When we are trying to talk about sexual response cycle, the male sexual response is he's a little faster on the trigger, and there is a refractory period we talk about. And this refractory period is attributed to this prolactin being present. Many of the times, many ladies do complain that our man, he sleeps off after once he has ejaculation. That means ejaculation as the physiological process to, in fact, what happens between the ears, orgasm. And many are actually left high and dry. And this is one of the extremely common complaint by many of the ladies. So we need to understand what precisely happening among these processes. So let us look into. In fact, we are all well aware that we are sleeping less. Next. And that creates quite a bit of difficulty. And there is a wide sex difference between man and woman. I'm not having too much of time to elaborate on many of these type of points, but important point, what we should keep it in mind from clinical point of view is testosterone in men, estrogen and progesterone in case of women, they're all highly linked to sleep cycles. Peak levels occur just before or after REM's onset. Insufficient and fragmented sleep blocks the nocturnal release of testosterone. Testosterone is linked to a worsening of obstructive sleep apnea in case of men, what we have already mentioned, and androgen deprivation therapy for prostate cancer, highly associated with the increased occurrence of hot flushes and night sweats. Estrogen can help in this particular area. Coming to women, sex drive's role is poorly understood compared to men. Fluctuations in sleep around puberty, menstrual cycle, pregnancy, and a whole lot of transition stages have been documented. Coming to women, there are a few more extra additional points we definitely need to look into. So there are plenty of articles available to document what precisely happens. Sleep deprivation has been associated with a reduced sexual desire and arousal in case of women. A lack of sleep and disrupted sleep have also been linked to higher risk of erectile dysfunction in case of men. Surprisingly, a short sleep deprivation, which actually has been suggested as one of the treatment methodology for depression, has been found to be quite useful. But all said and done, as far as women are concerned, the research has never found any significant increase in sexual activity. This is actually the difference what actually they had noted between men and women. So coming to the PSG measures, women have significantly longer total sleep time, shorter sleep onset latency, and better sleep efficiency than men. But however, when we are trying to look at clinical practice, there is a whole lot of differences that what actually has been observed. One important point is actually for the woman, all arousable tissues are distributed far and wide. Unless she closes and concentrates, it is not possible for her to reach orgasm. This is what actually has been documented. But you try to look at any one of the romantic situations and all of that, women closing the eyes is one of the very well documented. That is because there's a wide distribution of what we call a erectogenic tissue. And as far as the man is concerned, of course, you would be looking forward to because of the variety to a lot many other opportunities available, and that can lead to quite a bit of difficulty. In case of man, the whole tissue related to erection is concentrated in one particular area. It is actually easy for him to actually get stimulated. There are few things, of course, because it's a PDF file, it has not opened. But earlier we talked about estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. But now we talked about oxytocin because for the female orgasm in particular, the level of oxytocin is actually extremely important. And this is what actually which determines whether we are going to talk about something positive or negative about a woman, arousal, orgasm, and things like that. Next. So oxytocin facilitates bonding, and whole of female sexuality is based on this particular issues related to the touch. Let me tell you, in fact, the whole range of treatments that are available actually for the management of inhibited female orgasm is related to what we basically call training the woman in either masturbation or making her understand what actually, in fact, she is responsive to. So the role of oxytocin in actually in determining the female sexual functioning is very well documented. Next, to go into little more further, any romantic situation, the oxytocin release both in case of man and woman, and the electric type of sensation what we talk about is one of the very important point component. Unfortunately, for this oxytocin, tolerance develops very fast. With the same partner, in fact, jokingly people say that in the marriage, at the end of 7th Fera, that particular touch sensation which was giving that high degree of pleasure may actually disappear. So unless somebody else comes there, it may not be possible to get the same type of what we call stimulation. So what is being suggested is actually treat your partner as a girlfriend, keep her active, engaged, use touch as one of the extremely important component, and majority of the therapy is based on what we basically call sensate focus exercises. They're all nothing but improving communication and bringing about touch related issues. Getting exhausted. In fact, a woman can multitask, and this is actually one of the things what happens that she is exhausted in the end, and that can lead to quite a bit of difficulty. And woman takes a little longer time, actually sexual response cycle than man to reach the peak. If man doesn't understand this particular whole issue, living high and dry is one of the extremely important common problem. With fantasy alone, men can actually, in fact, can reach orgasm very easily, comfortably. But as far as the woman is concerned, only a very small percentage of the, more particularly the studies from Indian and other related South Asian countries, they have documented that, in fact, they carry such amount of inhibition and other related aspects. With sexual intercourse, only about 1/3 of the females. With the touch and vibrator and other related sensation, 100% woman can be taken for orgasm. So ultimately, the touch and touch alone, which is actually going to determine, is one of the important points. That means, as I told about a minute earlier, the masturbatory training or making her understand what the sensations can provide, and actually she helping the partner in making understanding this particular whole issue is extremely important. So many of our women actually, they hardly have any idea. Unless partner being lost early in one of the extremely common problem, and partner not understanding the whole issue. And currently we are talking about use of vibrators and such other things. In fact, that has brought about remarkable changes as far as the female sexuality and understanding is concerned. In clinical practice, we see women many of the time presenting with multiple somatic complaints, aches and pains, burning vagina syndrome, burning sensation in the body. Jokingly, I almost always say this lady is not serviced properly for the simple reason that, in fact, she's aroused, but not taken to the culmination can lead to quite a bit of difficulties. And many of these syndromes, what we actually talk about is related to this. They go for repeated investigations and lot many other things, which can actually one of the very well documented things. Man thinks that, in fact, like a computer, in fact, IT, BT, nowadays we are finding a lot of difficulties, not because of anything, but they believe that the partner should respond like that. Cyber widow. In fact, this is one of the newer terminology for the simple reason that, in fact, taking the laptop to the bedroom, mobile to the bedroom, TV to the bedroom can actually, in fact, make the partner feel neglected. And actually what is actually necessary for arousal may be actually missing. And that can lead to quite a bit of difficulty. So cure is the cuddle. The touch is actually one of the important component. And sleeping together, sleeping separately, these are some of the areas where a lot of research work has happened. But important point, what we can say as sex therapists is that, in fact, being together, spending time together, and even, in fact, going to an extent that, in fact, that making use of the touch as one of the important criterion can bring about wonderful changes both in the relationship and, in fact, the female sexual response. So in conclusion, for elements of healthy sleep and sex, sleep and sexual are complex and involve both mind and body. Sleep is essential for recuperation. Sleeping well requires getting a sufficient amount of slime. Sleep quality is also vital, and clutter around life, reduce it as much as possible, and see that, in fact, you have time to relax, feel comfortable. What Levin mentioned, that seventh point, emotional satisfaction. In case of man, easily it is actually part and parcel of life. Many women, this is actually one which is actually missing, which can lead to quite a bit of difficulty. So one important component which can actually determine a lot of things is actually the relationship issues. The other one is actually sleep related issues. There are a whole lot of hormones on there. The testosterone, both in case of man and in case of the woman, they have a very definite role to play in actually what we basically call improving the mood. But the important point here is actually there are multiple hormones are involved. Use of enhancing our dopamine level, oxytocin level, serotonin level, endorphin level. That means bringing about whole lifestyle changes is extremely important for good sleep and for good sex and getting good results out of both of these type of things. Next. Thank you very, very much. I have tried to bring in two important components, that sleep as one of the quality of life issue, sexuality as another quality of life issue. Both have a strong relationship, bidirectional relationship, and how we understand each one can make our life that much better and happy one. Thank you very, very much for a wonderful opportunity what you have provided for.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. That was two great, extensive and detailed presentation. Very interesting and informative. Yeah. Now for short of time, we'll quickly go through questions. We have few questions in the chat box.
Shall I take them, madam?
Yeah, Dr. Amrit. Yeah, if you can take it.
Yeah. So we have two questions actually. One,
Yeah.
Dr. Idris has asked how to decide which app to prescribe as a clinician. So I was actually talking as a mental health professional in terms of, all the apps are, I tried a few apps. So all the apps are, you have to pay money for the apps. So they are commercial apps. Now, initial 1 or 2 steps, they give it to you for free, and then everything else that is you think is relevant enough is, you have to pay money for, and they're expensive apps. So as a clinician, I think that is what the whole purpose of the presentation was, not to endorse any app, but how to look at apps in general. Maybe then we as a, association, we as a group can develop an app, maybe along with technological sound people. We have the new generation which is coming up with, new ideas, new things. So maybe with experience, now we're talking to our clients and then, correlating them with, polysomnographic findings, sleep actigraphies, we have those sensors, bed sensors. We can understand what is good and what is not bad. Now the things are just flooding the market. We have to look at them with a balanced view. And I think as clinicians, it is not the right time to talk to patients about installing an app. So I think that is how we should tread with caution, because tomorrow something will happen. We might be landing in trouble. That doctor, you had told me to use this app. So we'll leave it to the clinic, their discretion. Some good trackers are there. Some people, some give sounds. That is an add-on. We can always tell. Okay, music hai, some give white light. I think those things, as an add-on is good, but for the quality of sleep, for the, that is something. I think the apps are still in the nascent stage. It's like just like the pulse oximeter, Every time you put the pulse oximeter, it shows 93, you're rushing to the hospital, and 95% of the times we find they are defunct machines. So until we don't have robust things, we'll have more people who are anxious about their sleep than actually people who should be worried about their sleep. Another question Dr. Idris has asked is how to deal with people using different apps and willing to be treated accordingly. I didn't get the exact question, but then is it related to excessive use of apps, or is it related to people using sleep apps and they have sleep issues and then we have to address those issues? Maybe I think we take a subjective and an objective view of whatever presentation people are telling, think about psychiatric comorbidities, and then address the wider issue at large. I think that is where we will go a step ahead. So another question by Dr. Kashish Thapar has been, so if there is an existing diagnostic criteria being used in literature on the basis of psychopathology based on typed information given by the patient, I think it's too earlier time, maybe in the next 5-10 years, maybe when ICD-12 will be coming or DSM-6 might be coming, there might be some criteria that has been added based on some apps which might exist, or which might see through whatever is happening now. So I think that is just the beginning. We have to be very, very circumspect. We have to be open, but then it does not mean that whatever comes our way, we have to accept it without challenging it, without questioning it. That's my view based on the reviews I did.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Amrit, for all that. Let's have a look. Questions for Dr. Rao. If you have any questions, we can take quickly maybe 1 or 2 questions. Or if someone wants to unmute and say. I think all of them have got very detailed and great information.
I think please nobody ask the questions.
आपका टॉक से किसी को डाउट ही नहीं हुआ, देखिए हमारे में सबका डाउट हो गया।
वही मैं बोले ना, काफी informative, already detailed में everything has been explained, so but yeah, so I think no questions. So thank you once again, both of you, for taking out valuable time from your all busy schedule and to enlighten us on such an important topic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that I think we can end meeting.
Good night. Good night. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Sweet dreams from my side.
Good night.
Good night, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah. Will you have some questions?
Then I is on this excellent program.
Sure. Okay, so bye, good night.
Good night. Bye.